Arif Saheb was a carpenter by profession. However, to call him just a regular carpenter would be a mistake. He was a true artist of wood. There was a time when people would wait for months just to get one of his intricately carved wooden beds or a perfectly designed wardrobe. But times changed. With the rise of cheap plywood, laminates, and factory-made mass furniture in the city, the appreciation for authentic handcrafted work slowly faded away. People now looked for cheap and shiny things. No one bothered to look for the soul trapped inside the wood. With a heart full of resentment and exhaustion, Arif Saheb was just dragging his days along. Moreover, the suffocating smoke of the city, the concrete jungle all around, and the artificial clamor of the crowd were becoming completely unbearable for him. He felt that the city was slowly killing the artisan inside him. Leaving everything behind and gathering the meager savings he had left, Arif Saheb boarded a bus early one morning. He traveled far away from the city, right near a remote, hilly forest. Inside this deep forest, human footsteps were almost non-existent. After walking alone for about a kilometer into the woods, he found his dream spot. Huge, ancient pine and teak trees stood all around. The air was filled with the earthy scent of wet soil and the sweet fragrance of wildflowers. Instead of city horns, there was only the chirping of birds and the rustling of leaves. This deep solitude was exactly what he had been yearning for. At a specific spot in the forest, Arif Saheb's eyes caught something magnificent. A massive ancient tree stump, a giant log, lay on the ground. The tree had probably fallen down during a fierce storm many decades ago. Over time, its upper branches had decayed and merged with the soil. But the main trunk, which was as thick and long as a small elephant, still stood firm and resilient. A thick layer of moss had grown over the log, creating a beautiful carpet of green velvet. Small wild ferns and saplings had sprouted right beside it. Arif Saheb placed his hand gently on the log. The wood was still so alive, dense, and solid. He decided that he would not cut or harm this log in any way. He would build his shelter, keeping this log as a witness. He hadn't come to destroy nature. Rather, he wanted to live as a part of it. The very next morning, Arif Saheb's new life and new struggle began. This story has no fairy tales or magic, so behind it was the rigorous physical labor of an ordinary man. He decided that he would not disturb the ancient log under any circumstance. The log would serve as the back wall or a permanent, sturdy boundary for his house. He began raising the hut right along the side of the log. Using dry, hard wood, bamboo, and wild vines gathered from the forest, he built the frame of the house. Every morning, as the forest birds began to sing, Arif Saheb would gird up his loins and head out to collect wood. His hands grew rough, calluses formed on his palms, and sweat poured down his forehead. But there was no fatigue in that sweat. There was only a profound joy. To build the roof, he used large dried fern leaves, straw, and forest mud so that rainwater could not penetrate inside during monsoon days. When a part of the house perfectly merged with that giant log, it looked spectacular. It seemed as if the house wasn't built by human hands, but had grown out of the earth on its own. Arif Saheb used a chisel to smooth out a natural hollow inside the log, turning it into a beautiful shelf. There he kept his earthen water pot, a few old books, and a hurricane lamp. During work intervals, when the afternoon sun grew hot and he felt tired, he would sit back, resting his spine against that giant log. And the wood had a unique warmth of its own, which seemed to wash away all his bodily exhaustion the moment he touched it.
After 3 weeks of untiring labor, the hut was fully complete. It wasn't very large, just a beautiful little cottage for a single soul to lay his head, with one side tenderly guarded by that century-old tree stump. When the forest darkness engulfed the surroundings on the first night, Arif Sahab stood by the small wooden window of his house. Outside, the crickets kept up a continuous solemn drone, and somewhere in the distance, a nocturnal bird called out. Instead of the city's artificial neon lights, there was only pitch-black darkness outside, and through the gaps in the overhead branches, a sky full of stars was visible. He lit a candle inside the room and kept it safely. In the flickering light of the candle, a beautiful play of shadows and light was created on the surface of the massive log behind him. The centuries of history trapped within the ridges of the wood seemed to come alive. Suddenly, Arif Sahab noticed that a tiny crack in the log was oozing drops of tree sap. He gently touched the sap with his finger. He felt as though this neglected log, lying alone in this deep forest for so many years, had finally found a worthy companion today. It was as if it was accepting Arif Sahab's hard work and acknowledging this house as its own. Within moments, the air of the entire room was filled with a familiar magical scent of mountain wood. With that fragrance, all the weariness in his heart vanished, and he drifted into a peaceful